What is going on, everybody? So been a long time since I posted a video. Actually, it's been about a month or so since I did the Grand Cherokee build, but today I wanted to do this video. Obviously you can see behind us we've got another Wrangler with a rotted frame, but this one gives me a great opportunity to make a video about something that I am super passionate about you guys not using, and that is rubberized undercoating. Now I'll take you over there in a minute and show you exactly what I'm talking about, but first I want to give you guys a little bit of info on how paint works on bare metal and on metal in general. So in case you're not aware, most of you are, but in case you're not aware and you're watching a video like this for the first time, one of the main issues that you run into is that when you're painting bare metal, there's a very specific process that you need to take. That process includes cleaning the metal so that it's free of dust, dirt, grease, debris, anything that might contaminate the actual paint adhesion. The second step is to clean it with some form of either cleaner degreaser or acid etch or something of that nature to get the metal ready to accept paint. Now, most newer primers, or etching primers as they're called, are designed for bare metal. They have a chemical in them that actually etches the metal and allows that primer to adhere to the metal. So once you've completed the primer step, your next step is to lay something over top of that primer to seal the primer. The primer is susceptible to water intrusion, it's susceptible to all kinds of other things, and it's not a very strong exterior coating. It's designed to bond to the metal and then bond to the paint. So it's kind of an interim layer of coating so that your paint has something better to adhere to. So now that your self-etching primer is on, now you have to clean that up with wax and grease remover to make sure there's no contaminants, no dust. Use a tack cloth, whatever it may be. Then you spray a sealer over top of it. That will seal your primer layer. That sealer layer is also not a good exterior layer. It doesn't provide any protection until you put a coat of paint on top of it. Now, once your sealer is on and sanded and cleaned yet again, then you add your paint on top of that. Once you've added your base coat, if you're doing like a lacquer or an acrylic or whatever it may be, then you're doing a single stage, which means you have a base coat and that's it. You do 2-3 coats and you're done, and then that dries. Now, in a base clear situation, your base coat again doesn't provide very much protection. You need something hard over top of it, meaning the clear coat. So then you would color sand your base coat, and then you would clean all that up, and then you would add clear coat over top of it. That clear coat then gets cut and buffed and shined and polished and everything else. And then that takes about a month or two to actually cure 100% to provide the protection you're looking for. Now, with that being said, with knowing how involved the actual paint process is to get bare metal protected properly, the one thing you cannot do is you cannot take metal that is rusted or pre-painted or coated with something and expect anything to adhere to it or spray over it and be able to stick and protect that metal. So what I have behind me here is legitimately a perfect example of what happens if you do not properly prep the metal that you're working with and you just spray over top of everything with rubberized undercoating. Now, rubberized undercoating, let's talk about that for a second. It is a paint-based material that has basically an RTV, a room temperature vulcanizing rubber, built into it that will allow you to spray it, and once it cures, it turns into a rubber barrier that is promised to stop water intrusion and everything else that goes along with it. Here's the problem with that. Not only does rubberized undercoating keep water out, but it can also keep water in. Now, that is a huge problem in the fact that if your vehicle has not been rubberized undercoated directly from the factory during the painting process, it is not going to last. And if it does last, it's going to cause what's behind us right now. So let's take a walk back over to this Jeep and I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about, and we can get a little bit more into depth on why rubberized undercoating does what it does. Okay, so as you can see, I mean, in typical fashion, this frame has been repaired once before, or twice before, or 10 times before. So you know, we have our normal typical work cut out for us. We're doing the full center sections on this one all the way up. We're doing the spring buckets. We're doing the rear sections because those are bad. And on this one, we actually have to do the front sections. And then we're going to replace a lot of the body mounts and try to clear up some of the little body rust that's on here and whatnot. But my main concern, what I wanted to show you guys, this vehicle at some point in its history was undercoated with rubberized undercoating. Now, what you can see here is what looks like a little bit of a bubble. This is all rubberized undercoating. And underneath this rubberized undercoating, we can peel this back. It comes off as one piece all the way down. We have rot behind the rubberized undercoating. We can continue to peel all of this off, and everywhere that we peel it off, we're going to find more and more rot. Because this vehicle was bought from the factory and then taken to an aftermarket shop or something of that nature, and it was sprayed with a rubberized undercoating. And now you can really start to see some of the damage up in this area here, where we've just got pieces and dust and rust and all kinds of stuff falling off of this frame. And that goes everywhere, even the shock towers. If you look at the shock tower itself, this has the spring and the shock, and it's kind of an important piece. Now I can literally get in here and just flake off big pieces of this because all that rubberized undercoating was sprayed up in there. Same thing goes for the steering box over here. We can literally just push on that and get crap to fall off of it. Now where this became a huge problem is over on this side of the frame in the front. You can see how large that hole is, and that there's literally just pieces that come out of that frame. And I can pick at this little guy right here, and we can just by hand pull off chunks and chunks and chunks of this frame. So unfortunately, what killed this frame is a combination of, you know, the typical, look at that, the typical Jeep rust, along with a rubberized undercoating that failed and was holding water. So now we have this problem here where we can literally, this is going to be a good one, it's like picking scabs. We can literally pull off chunks of frame that are sitting under the undercoating. And then we have that same problem running all the way across the back of the frame here, and then all the way up into the underside of the back of the frame. You can see that just comes right off of there. And we can just peel until we literally blow a hole in the frame. So as far as rubberized undercoating goes, please do not ever use rubberized undercoating. The only time that it is actually worthwhile is if it is done during the manufacturing process of the vehicle and it's done directly from the factory. So if it's done from the factory and it is sealed properly, then you won't have this problem. However, in this particular case, this vehicle has been undercoated and has caused all sorts of problems. And you can kind of even see that it's bulging out the frame in the back here, which once we get the needle scaler on that guy, we're going to blow right through that. So we have to replace these sections as well. And then of course, you know, you have your typical home repair that we're going to have to cut out of there. But I mean, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's literally a 1/4 inch bulge right there that we're ultimately going to have to get rid of so that we can do the frame. So rubberized undercoating, big no-no. Okay, so now that you know the problems with the rubberized undercoating, I'm going to give you a few options that you can use instead of that. Things that you can do that will go over top of the regular paint, that will go over top of small amounts of surface rust, and will ultimately protect protect your frame without holding water and without causing problems in the future for you. Now, obviously, when we do these repairs, the main issue with these Jeeps is that there were never any drain holes in the frame. The drain holes would have allowed the water to get out, and you wouldn't end up with these massive problems like we have currently with these things. But the rubberized undercoating just accelerates that process. I mean, this Jeep doesn't even have 100,000 miles on it. It's got, I want to say it's got 86,000 miles on it. And the frame is literally falling out from underneath it. And that's a combination of the water that gets trapped in it, northern Ohio weather, and the fact that it was rubberized, undercoated improperly. So one of the main things that I utilize to undercoat vehicles is this stuff here, fluid film. Now, fluid film is a lanolin-based, non-toxic, environmentally safe, wax-based substance that you can coat the entire frame with. Now, this stuff is really cool in the fact that it sticks really well, and it utilizes the grime on the road, sand and dirt and dust and everything else, and turns it into a rust-proofing barrier. Now, the nice thing about fluid film is that after you've coated the vehicle and all of this stuff gets attached to it, at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year or after the winter, whatever it may be, you can grab a hold of a power washer or go to the car wash or whatever it may be, and you can power wash your frame and get the majority of the product off and then just recoat it again. Or if you get a dry spot or whatever, you can literally just spray it on there and recoat it. It's inexpensive to do, and it helps protect the frame better than anything that I've used in the past. Now, other options are you can spray the frame down with WD-40 on a regular basis. That will help significantly. There are several companies out there that do an oil-based coating, where it's almost like a thick oil that sticks to the frame and does the same thing that fluid film does, except it smells a little funny and it's a little odd and weird, but it works amazingly well. In the Northeast here, we have several companies that do these particular oil coatings, but fluid film for me has worked the best. There's other options as well. You can literally prime and paint it and use rattle cans. This way you can go to Home Depot. If you get a little bit of rust, you can wire brush it, shoot it with a rattle can, and call it a day. Now, once we've got the patches in, the drain holes will take care of any interior water. The frame is coated on the interior with a self-etching primer, so you don't have to worry about the interior of the frame any longer. It's only the exterior that you're now going to be concerned with. So using a product like fluid film, or I think New Hampshire oil coating, NH oil coating is one of them, oil-based coatings. You can even mix together diesel fuel and transmission oil and coat your frame in that, spray that on there. And there's several other like semi-permanent, temporary undercoatings that you can utilize that are not going to hold water behind them and rot your frames out. So I hope that I've given you guys a little bit of an insight on what to do and what not to do when it comes to caring for the frame on your vehicle. And unfortunately, these Jeeps are already at a point where they're rotting from the inside out anyway, so you do have to get them repaired. You can't just coat it and pray that it doesn't happen. One of the things you can do with preventative maintenance on these Jeeps is if you have one and the frame is in good shape, drill a 1/2-inch hole on both sides of the frame right behind your transmission skid plate. Just right there. Drill a 1/2-inch hole straight up, shoot it with a little paint so that it doesn't rust, and then your frame will drain properly. If you're starting to see rust on the outside of the frame, it's probably already too bad on the inside to save, and you're going to need to fix it and then take care of it properly. So, hope you guys got a lot of information from that. I got to go ahead and start needle scaling this thing to see how bad it is. And maybe what I'll do is once I get it all scaled down and get all the actual crap off of it, I'll bring you guys back and show you what it looks like underneath all that undercoating. All right, guys, so here it is. Now we uncovered the true depth of the damages. Got a nice big hole back here on the driver's side. You see all that white? That's all salt that got under the rubberized undercoating and literally just ate the frame behind the undercoating without this poor gentleman actually knowing that that was happening. Same thing goes for all throughout here, all the way up to the front. Even got the shock. The shock was undercoated, As soon as I hit it with the needle scaler, the whole shock body came apart. We got pieces of the spring bucket. That's not good because that's where the steering box mounts. So the steering box mount is rotted through, but you couldn't tell because it was undercoated. Now we go over to the passenger side. The passenger side is even worse. There's literally nothing left of that section of frame. Brake line is popped. Same thing with that shock. And then same thing pretty much all the way back. So you can see that's the factory paint on the frame. There's the undercoating. So it was never prepped properly. And because it wasn't prepped properly, all the water got behind the rubberized undercoating and just ate the frame underneath it. So all the way back here you can see all the salt from the roads underneath the frame. So now we're going to have to go, and luckily the top section of the frame, the top, we only need, all right, let's start that over. So luckily we only need about a ½ an inch up here, maybe 3/4 of an inch to be good on the top section of the frame, which luckily with this one we have. We've got a good amount of material that's still super solid up top, and that's what we need to make things work. Holy crap, I'm covered in rust. I look like that Jeep. So now, if that doesn't deter you from listening to your grandfather when he tells you to rubberize undercoat your vehicle, I don't know what will. But you can see the effects of that. And that is literally all of that damage is caused by the rubberized undercoating. There's nothing else that's going to cause a frame to rust that badly, that high up. And you guys have seen all my other Jeep videos, and you always see that the top half of the frame still looks great, still has factory paint on it, still looks amazing. But once you put that rubberized undercoating on there and you don't do it properly, or you use a cheap product or whatever it may be, you're going to get damage like that. So now that we've gotten that frame needle scaled, we're going to have to go ahead and sandblast that entire frame. And the reason being is because we need clean metal to weld to. So with all that rust everywhere and everything going on, we're going to have to sandblast it to get some nice clean metal so that we can weld to it. So that makes an even bigger mess. And let me just show you guys before we end off this video. That right there on the floor is just what was under the rubberized undercoating. That's literally a whole Jeep's worth of rust just under the undercoating. It's insane. So, like I was saying, you're going to want to make sure that you don't use rubberized undercoating. So, hope you guys got a lot out of that video. I thought it would be an interesting one to show the different types of damage that can happen to these frames and how you can prevent it by not using rubberized undercoating. I'm going to say it again. You're tired of hearing of it, but no rubberized undercoating. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great day.